Live from downtown Detroit, Local 4 News at 11 starts now.
A deadly stabbing in a neighborhood in Fraser leads to lockdowns at both the middle and high schools. Glad you're with us at 11. Right now, Fraser police saying very little about what happened, though we do know at least one person was stabbed to death.
Tim Pamplin is getting reaction from parents and joins us from the scene with the night cam. Tim.
We're along Hoover near 14 Mile in Fraser. The children, a head sign indicating the middle and high school just a quarter of a mile north of here. The stabbing occurring shortly after school dismissal this afternoon. As we look at some of the video, youngsters giving witness statements, police putting up crime scene tape. We're hearing one person was stabbed to death. An officer looks at that scene down there, the medical bags still in place. Fraser police being extremely tight-lipped tonight, not giving us much information, not telling us whether or not this was a juvenile or an adult that was killed here today. But one mum I spoke to tonight is extremely concerned.
To actually have knives involved, and it's scary. I just, I worry about my kids all the time. They're telling me every day that there's a fight or there's, people doing this or that. So yeah, if there's school tomorrow, I definitely want to see what's going on. I don't want to send my kids to school now after all this, It's just getting way too close to home.
You can understand her concern, and to that point, the school district just released a statement just before going on air here saying that they will have counselors and law enforcement officers at Fraser schools tomorrow. That is the scene right now in Fraser with a night cam. Tim Pamplin, Local 4.
Okay, Tim. Our other top story tonight, MSU's president defending himself as some members of the board try to get him to retire early.
Mara McDonald live in East Lansing. Mara, tonight the faculty heard directly from the president.
That's right, and President Stanley didn't address any of the early retirement issue at all. What he did say is this, that he stands behind his decision-making process on two issues that are swirling at the board. Number one, the forced resignation of the dean of the Broad School of Business, and number two, the university's certification process when it comes to Title IX. President Stanley addressing the faculty senate tonight.
I want to thank everyone for their messages of support and encouragement, and to those who've spoken publicly supporting the provost and me.
Stanley said he supported the decision to force the resignation of the dean of the Broad School of Business for allegedly failing to report sexual harassment allegations in a timely manner. Faculty at Broad went to the Board of Trustees and asked for an investigation into what went down.
But I was very surprised when the board announced that it was hiring outside legal counsel to review this decision.
The other issue is the certification process the university is required to go through to make sure it's in compliance with Title IX. The president claims he is not the issue. The board is.
I was notified that some of our board members may not have actually complied with their part of the state requirement in 2021. We asked for an internal audit and review of the situation, which raised questions about our compliance and made it clear that we can improve the processes by which the reviews were taking place.
Clearly, the Board of Trustees does not view it that way. Dr. Rima Vassar, a Board of Trustees member, told the Faculty Senate there was enough concern about Stanley's management of Title IX issues. An early retirement offer was extended.
I don't want to say that the board has not taken an action other than to ask the president to retire earlier.
Back here live, so there has been no talk of a forced resignation at this point or no threat of a firing, but important to point out that the Board of Trustees has two investigations going, being done by an outside legal firm. They await final reports. We're live in East Lansing tonight on the campus of MSU. I'm Mara McDonald, Local 4.
Some way to start the school year at MSU. All right, Mara.
Detroit police investigating another deadly shooting involving a child, this time an 8-year-old little girl.
Happened this afternoon on Hayden near Joy Road on the city's west side. Police say the girl and her 10-year-old brother found a gun while they were home alone during the day. The weapon was fired and the girl was hit in the neck and shoulder and died. Right now, it is not clear who fired the gun. Neighbors and police, though, are trying to make sense of what happened.
We tried to help her, but it didn't work out. I just hate that because it's a tragic shooting.
We got child abuse on the scene, and they're going to look at the parental responsibility and all those things that I've said a zillion times. But what does that do to bring the 8-year-old back? Nothing. And then this needs to be the last one.
Many are asking questions about why the kids weren't in school. Chief White is encouraging gun owners to secure their guns. He's encouraging again, secure your guns, especially around children.
Well, for the first time in 5 years, Detroit police will be welcoming a new class of reserve officers. Those new recruits will be training twice a week over the next 2 months. Victor Williams joins us from DPD headquarters with how the department will be deploying these new reserve officers.
Well, these are just regular people with regular jobs, and even though this new gig is not a paying one, it's still very rewarding in many ways.
That's a good thing. It's something that I want to do because I'm tired of what we see here on the streets.
Leroy Smith and Alvaro Sotonares are two ordinary men about to embark on an extraordinary journey with the Detroit Police Department as reserve police officers.
The service for the community, I think, is a wonderful opportunity.
Both are going through a 9-week program to become members of law enforcement. The chief of the reserve, Stephen Lewis, says it's different than you may think.
Our job is to assist sworn officers. We're there to help them with whatever they need to get their jobs done.
You are not police officers.
By the looks of it, you wouldn't be able to tell. The uniforms are pretty much identical to that of a sworn officer. However, as Captain Tanya Leonard Gilbert explains, the only difference is that these officers are solely volunteering.
It's amazing to have members of the community that would be willing to volunteer to come in and support us.
And while these men aren't being paid, they have their own personal reasons for joining the force.
I want to help a little bit.
Leroy, on the other hand, is from Buffalo, New York, but decided to offer his services following the tragic events of the Top supermarket shooting.
We really never had nothing like that happen in Buffalo.
Yeah.
To see that happen on Jefferson like it did, that put a little bit more fire in me.
Either way, the impact made on the community will be powerful.
The fact that they would be willing to volunteer after working a day job or doing their lives is phenomenal. They should be commended. In our hearts, they're heroes too.
And at the very end of this 9-week program, there is going to be an induction ceremony for all the new reserves. If you guys would like to get involved yourselves, head over to clickondetroit.com to find out ways to do so. Victor Williams, Local 4.
All right, Victor. Republican nominee for governor Tudor Dixon unveiling her plan for public safety today in Grand Rapids, pledging to spend $1 billion over the next 4 years on policing across the state should she win in November.
Michigan families support our public safety officials. Michigan voters believe we need to fund the police, not defund the police. On November 8th, I'm confident Michigan voters will reject those like Gretchen Whitmer who have either ignored or enabled this problem, turned their backs on the men and women who every day have had our backs, and send a clear message that we need more police and fewer violent crimes.
The plan includes $700 million to recruit and retain police officers, with another $250 million on equipment and training. You saw there, perhaps to her left, her running mate, Shane Hernandez. He said the $1 billion investment would be paid for by using the surplus in the general fund. In a statement provided to Bridge Michigan, the Whitmer campaign responded by saying the governor is committed to working with anyone to reduce crime and has increased resources to hire more police. Turn our attention across the Atlantic again, as tomorrow the royal family will escort Queen Elizabeth's coffin from Buckingham Palace to Westminster.
Today, her coffin was moved from Scotland to London, where mourners have already gathered outside Westminster Hall, where she will lie in state until her funeral Monday. About 750,000 are expected over the next 4 days. Chrysler kicked off this year's North American International Auto Show with unveiling a new full-size 300 model.
The 2023 300 is actually going to be the last model year, with Chrysler transitioning to electric vehicles, with Chrysler expected to be an all-EV brand by 2028. That's quick. The 300, though, is unveiled in front of the Spirit of Detroit. We got a lot more reveals to come here this week. Also, President Biden set to tour the auto show tomorrow. Live coverage as it's media day at the new September auto show. We'll get things started bright and early at 4:30 a.m.